Welcome to the Smarter Science of Slim, the scientifically proven program where you eat more and exercise less to burn fat and boost health.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim show. Very excited about the guest joining us today because she is just radiant. Like if you look on her website, she's always smiling. She's just beaming out healthiness and positivity. And it's also reflected in her online pseudonym. She is known as the Wellness Mama. Her first name is Kate, and she is just so passionate about helping people sort through all the bad health advice that we have out there. And her life is a bit of an open book. I mean, she's a wife. She's a mom of 5. She's an amateur chef. She's a real food crusader. She can actually finally do a pull-up, which is exciting. And she is a chronic abuser of elliptical trainers. And she just likes reading medical journals like me in her free time. She's just a crusader to help people live better lives. And that's why we've got to share her story. Katie, the Wellness Mama, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Well, Katie, and should I call you the Wellness Mama or should I call you Katie?
Katie is great.
Okay. Well, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how Wellness Mama and then, of course, the website Wellness Mama came to be?
Sure. It was actually sort of an accident. My degree was in nutrition, and I was doing one-on-one nutrition practice with clients for a long time. And then once I had 5 kids, that got really difficult. And I was having a lot of trouble being away from them to do consulting, but I still loved working with clients. So since I had taken a step back from the one-on-one practice, I started putting recipes and articles and different information online for clients so that I wouldn't have to recreate that every time they asked a question or every time they had a problem. I could just send them what was already there. And it was never really the plan to have like a huge online presence or anything. I just wanted to put that information out there to help people. And I think I kind of hit the Facebook and Pinterest when they got huge. And so things sort of took off, and I'm having to go backwards and figure out all the tech side and the business side because that was never really, I never was like, I want to build this huge online presence. It just kind of happened, and it's been wonderful. Like the reason it's worth it to me in the 5 a.m. mornings getting up to write is I love getting the emails from people that I've never met that hopefully something on my site has helped them.
Katie, you're a great example of you put the mission and the content first, and often we can be surprised as to how quickly things blossom when we have that mission focus. And your mission is very clear. You have a goal to provide your family and really everyone else's family with the healthiest foods and lifestyle possible. And that your effort to do that and digging into the research rather than just what we're all told in popular press has led you to some, what some may think are counterintuitive conclusions, but those who are versed in the science know to be quite obvious. So can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, that was a big aha moment for me, is realizing a lot of the stuff I was taught in school was not actually backed by the science we have now, and seeing that what I was taught in school was not helping people, and in some cases it was making them worse. And I had a whole run of clients in a row with like autoimmune issues and hormonal imbalances and things like Crohn's disease, and I was realizing that my normal advice was doing nothing for them. And so I really started researching and delving into the medical journals. And then another aha moment for me was our 3rd son. I had placenta previa and we didn't know it. So he ended up being an emergency C-section. And he and I both almost died, but he was in the NICU for a week. And the first things that ever went in his body were steroids and antibiotics. And I'm sure you know from a gut bacteria standpoint, that's about as bad as it can get. So I had to really delve into the research on gut bacteria and how that can affect his mental health and his attitude and his digestion. And because he, once he started eating real food, was having allergies to a lot of different things. So that started a whole journey for me of reversing his allergies, which thankfully we've done now. And he's completely recovered and he's doing wonderful. But that was a whole new world that I had never been exposed to. And having my own child go through that gave me the motivation to really research it and to help him. And I realized this information could be so helpful to a lot of other parents, especially because a lot of them are just not being given the information on how much food can impact every aspect of their lives, their children's lives. And so I really wanted to get that information out there, especially to other moms, that there is hope for a lot of these things. They're not a lifelong diagnosis.
Katie, that is such an inspirational message. And at the risk of maybe getting you amped up, because it might be hard to not get amped up here, but you talk about the importance and the power we have when making choices, not only for ourselves, but potentially even more importantly for small developing people who are really need good nutrition. And we live in a culture where kids' foods and like children's menus are defined by, correct me if I'm wrong, the processed garbage that is toxic for anyone, let alone those who are most in need of good nutrition, aka growing people.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It drives me absolutely nuts. And I think that's one of my big points I always try to make with moms is we assume that kids aren't going to like healthier foods. And so we cater to them with these kid-friendly foods that, like you said, are complete junk. There's no nutrition in them whatsoever. And we expect the kids aren't going to like vegetables or they're not going to want to eat protein. They're just going to want chicken nuggets and French fries. And I've had the exact opposite experience with mine, especially the ones, my younger ones who I've known more about this when they were little and just learning how to eat. They started off with things like bone broth and avocado and even coconut oil and like grass-fed butter, just really, really nutrient-dense powerhouses. So even if they were just taking a few bites a day, learning how to eat, I knew they were still getting a ton of nutrition from it. And most of the kids' foods that are marketed, I mean, everything in the grocery store, it's just chemicals and food dyes and artificial fats and artificial colors and artificial flavors. And that 0 to 5 age is when they're developing their entire nutritional foundation for the rest of their lives. And that's pretty much set in stone. Dr. Kate Shanahan talks about that in the book Deep Nutrition, which I think is a great read for moms, but about how what they eat at that age can literally determine their gene expression for the rest of their life, and whether they're going to have genetic expression of certain diseases they may be predisposed to, or whether they're going to have genetic expression for being obese. And so their diet in those early years and their mom's diet when they're pregnant is extremely important for that. So yeah, I go to great lengths and probably get a little obsessive with focusing on my kids' nutrition, because I realize whatever I feed them when they're young, especially before they're 5, is going to be 10 times more important than what they may eat when they're in college if they have a horrible diet then, that I can give them that gift now that I may not be able to give them later, but hopefully that's still building their strong foundation.
So, Katie, it's hard for anyone to argue with what you just said. I mean, it is obviously true, and it's so encouraging that we can give our children this gift. But I know you must deal with this every single day, and that's the pushback of like, I agree with this in principle. No, I'm not saying this for myself, but I do agree with this in principle. But you must have people who say, I agree with this in principle, but I just don't have time or I don't have the money. What do you say to those individuals?
Well, I often have to get a little bit of tough love and ask them, like, well, do you ever go out to eat? And do you ever spend money on superfluous things? Because the food you're eating is so important for your overall health that you can be reducing medical expenses or other expenses if you're focusing on the food. And we've been on very tight budgets at times, and you can still make stir fries out of frozen vegetables and buy meat and just stretch it. And you don't have to feed on the processed foods. And it doesn't even have to take that much more time if you plan it. So that's always my biggest tip for moms, is that you have to have the structure and you have to have the plan. And when we went through the really intense restrictive diet with my son to heal his allergies, I realized that like the only way I'm going to survive this is if I have a really detailed plan. So I found 7 meals that were allergy free and that I knew were fine for him. And I cooked those on a certain day. So Monday was this and Tuesday was this. And so I knew ahead of time there was no stress about planning it. My shopping list was exactly the same every week. I made sure I always had the foods on hand, and the kids just got used to eating it. And so they were fine with it, and they would look forward to like soup day or whatever day they liked the most. But the structure is what got me through that. So that's what I tell moms, especially if they're on a really tight budget, is find 7 meals that fit your budget, that are healthy, that don't take forever to prepare. A lot of times stir fries and soups are great for that. And just alternate days of the week for as long as you have to get your family adjusted to it, or until your budget maybe is a little bigger at some point. But if it really is a priority for you, just make that plan and stick to it.
Katie, I love that advice about that little bit of structure, a little bit of consistency. And cooking in bulk can really, because I think the challenge we sometimes face is like, oh my God, what's for dinner? And then when you don't know, then it's this panic. Just grab that mac and cheese, that processed mac and cheese off the shelf. But if you just spend maybe even 20 to 30 minutes just saying, okay, what will work? And maybe there's a rough patch that week, so you refine it the next week. Like you spend 30 minutes a week for 3 weeks evolving this approach, and then you're good. Like then you've got the plan and you don't even need to think about it anymore if you don't want to moving forward. It's all like, what's for dinner tonight is answered.
Exactly. And that also lets you not waste any ingredients, so you can stretch your budget farther. Like for us, we do roasted chicken on Monday nights with vegetables. And then I save the bones. They go in a crock pot with the leftover vegetables and become bone broth that we keep going all week, and drink the bone broth with eggs in it for breakfast as egg drop soup, or just a mug of it at lunch. And that's so nutritious, and it costs nothing because most people just throw the bones away. So you're reusing something that most people would not even use, and you're getting all that added nutrition.
And it simplifies your life so much, because I know sometimes when I go visit my hometown and I watch my mother, who doesn't necessarily practice this lifestyle as much. She's definitely getting better, but not yet. It's always like, well, what am I going to get at the grocery store? And it's always, there's all these decision points, and it's like worry about that. Oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Whereas if it's my wife and I, here's what we buy at the grocery store every single week. Here's what we get off Amazon, subscribe and save every single month. And it's just easy. It's simple. It's just simple.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why, because a lot of these weight loss plans that you see that people use are different nutritional plans. I don't necessarily agree with the foods they're recommending, but a lot of them do work because they're providing the structure. And that's what a lot of people need, is just that structure, that consistency to be able to stick to it. I think that really the challenge is not even the knowing what to eat or the eating of the healthy foods. It's consistently sticking to that. Like you said, those times when it's like, what's for dinner, or you only have half an hour. And that's where the planning comes in.
And Katie, have you, as a mother of 5, you certainly have a relatively large sample set of kids to speak about here. So what has been your experience with, you've created this structure in your home, but obviously your children are not always in your home. How do they then act outside the home? How do you deal with things like trick or treat, or like, sugary processed snacks being brought into school, things like that?
Well, I think you have to differentiate a little bit. Like if you have a child with food allergies, or that you're working on intensively healing gut problems, to me, I treat that differently than a child who doesn't have those issues. Because for those children, even just a little mistake or a little cheat can be a big problem until they reverse those. But for children who don't have those severe issues, I focus as like, I don't do the 80-20, I do like 95-5. So at home, I know that everything they get is going to be solid and allergy-free and organic, and that they're getting a ton of nutrition at every meal at home. And I also go to great lengths to educate them. We always try to make, especially dinner time, but usually breakfast too, a family activity, even with my husband, and let that be bonding time and time spent with the family, and teaching them like, yeah, eggs taste good, but they also have choline, and they have good cholesterol, and they have healthy fats, and helping the kids understand. Because I think a lot of times we don't really give kids credit, but they have the ability to understand that a lot. And so teaching them from a really young age that food is first for nutrition and for health, and secondly for taste. And so we need to try to learn to love all these healthy foods, even, things like liver that most kids would be like, ew, I'm not eating it. But teach them all the vitamins that are in that and why it's so good for them, and let them start making that choice to learn to like it themselves. And so by educating them, then when they're in situations away from home that I'm not in control of, that sometimes certainly they might choose the unhealthy choice. But a lot of times I've seen my kids say, I know that I don't feel good when I eat that. So I'm going to stick with the veggie tray or our boiled eggs or whatever, because there's usually at least one good option they can find, and I make sure to pack healthy snacks for them. But I think really the key is education, and just teaching them that food is about the nutrition first and the enjoyment second, and not just letting it be a reward for everything. And if they get good grades, they get ice cream, and on their birthday they get all these sugary junk, and just starting with the education really young.
Katie, what you just described is so transformational and empowering, because if I'm hearing you correctly, what a lot of people do is indirectly communicate to their children that healthy food is bad in quotations, and that unhealthy food is good in quotations. What I mean by that is like, you can't have this until you eat your vegetables. is basically
Right.
like saying vegetables are devastating, and the and the negative connotation put upon them, it just persists throughout the rest of the child's life. And then the dessert or the ice cream or the candy bar, that's good food, whereas the vegetables are bad food. But what you're saying is you can actually teach and involve your children in saying, you know what? No, healthy is delightful. That's the good stuff. That's the stuff that makes you feel good. And then you don't need to restrict them or reward them because they want to be healthy and happy.
Exactly. And not creating those emotional connections. I see a lot of kids that like food's always a reward. So if anything good they do, that like any birthday, any happy moment is rewarded by sugary food. And that's creating that association in their head that anytime like a good feeling is associated with junk food. And so I've seen people in college, when I was in college, that if they were upset or they were stressed, they turned to junk food. And that was that mental connection in their head. Those things made them feel good. Those were happy times. So when they wanted happy times, they thought about junk food. And I just have been really cautious about, I don't want to create that association with my kids. Yeah, and just teach them that healthy foods can be delicious. The other day I had to laugh because my kids asked what was for dinner, and I said broccoli and other stuff, and they're like, yay, broccoli. And I have a 3-year-old who's excited about broccoli. It's totally possible. They're just normal kids, and I think just teaching them and letting them be part of that planning. Another thing now that we're not on as strict of a diet is I have a lot of meals on index cards, and I let them help pick, or we'll talk about, hey, who knows the food that has vitamin A in it? What food can we find that has vitamin A in it? And let them just be part of the planning process too, so they feel invested in it. Or in the summer, we have a garden and they help grow it, so they have a vested interest because they help make that food. And I think we just need to give kids more credit because they really will a lot of times make the healthy choices that they're taught the importance of why to make them, and not forced to eat the vegetables, and not given all these negative connotations like you said with healthy food. And whereas the junk food is considered like the treat or the good thing, because I think that creates a really unhealthy mental attitude about food.
Brilliant. Bro, I love it. Kids like feeling good just like adults like feeling good. So that makes a lot of sense. Well, Katie, we could totally talk all day. This is just a wealth of helpful information for some situations which I know most people find to be the most challenging, which is, I can make this work for me, but it's how do I make it work for my family? And I know you have a bunch of additional resources on your website, wellnessmama.com, that individuals can check out. But what's next for you and for Wellness Mama?
It's a good question. Like I said, I've been trying to figure all this out kind of backwards. I am in the process of redesigning. I have a meal plan subscription that I've in the past offered mainly to my clients, and I'm in the process of having it built from the ground up so it can be used by anyone, where there will be pre-planned meals each week, like I talked about, with the very structured for certain allergies or for certain diets that people would need to follow. But that it also has a meal planner that they can plan their own, just drag and drop, and it'll give them a shopping list that'll show up on their phone. They can just check it off. So that'll be a resource. We're planning on hopefully launching that at the first of the year. And then we're also in the process of creating wellness media, because my ultimate mission is I want to change the health of Americans and of the world. And I realize obviously no one person can do this. So I'm trying to gather a network of other bloggers and other nutrition professionals and health experts to kind of give us a collective reach that's bigger. And so it's going to have resources for bloggers to help them grow their presence, because the more of us out there spreading this message, the more people are going to hear it. So that'll be totally free just for bloggers to help them get bigger. And then we're going to be creating a website that has a resource of just all this health information that they can find through these other people's sites. So that's an exciting project that we're launching really soon. And I'm so excited to see the changes that will come from these other bloggers, because there are so many wonderful new bloggers that I just can't wait to help them get big because they have such great messages.
Well, Katie, I'm curious, do you have like just a blue spandex suit with a red S on its chest? Like, that's a ridiculous amount of work for a mom of 5 to take on. So kudos to you. I mean, it's very clear that this is much more to you. I mean, this is a mission. This is why you're here on the earth, because I can't imagine anyone else being able to put that much of themselves into something unless they believed it with their heart in addition to their mind. So kudos to you, madam. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And where again can folks go to stay up to date on all things Wellness Mama?
My website is wellnessmama.com, and there's a place there that they can sign up for my email list if they want to get updates on all the new projects that are going to be coming out, or just my articles that go out each week. And it's still in beta, but wellness-media.com is the one for other bloggers, health professionals, and that should be hopefully going live within about a week.
Brilliant. Well, Katie, thank you so much for joining us today, for these awesome tips and insights, and for being just a wonderful example of that. We can all change and improve the lives of so many people, and no better example of that are the little people that we create and that we're responsible for. So, Katie, the Wellness Mama over at wellnessmama.com, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation with the Wellness Mama as much as I did. And please remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon. Wait, don't stop listening yet.
You can get fabulous free SANE recipes over at carriebrown.com.
And don't forget your 100% free eating and exercise quick start program, as well as free, fun, daily tips delivered right into your inbox at bailorgroup.com. That's BAILOR group.com.